It goes without saying, really. The Killing Joke graphic novel needs no introduction. To me, as well as most long-time Batman fans, it is one of the most important graphic novels ever written, providing an origin story for the Clown Prince of Crime. Not only is it regarded as one of the best graphic novels ever published, but it is also held as one of the most controversial. Fans have been waiting for this story to be told on screen since 1988, so when it was finally announced it was being made into an animated movie, fans leapt for joy, including myself. After seeing the movie though, some fans seem to be getting too hung up about what was added instead of treasuring the gold after the initial terrible half hour. The Killing Joke movie to me is something you have to digest for a while, like a heavy 3-course dinner. The Batgirl prologue, the first half hour of the movie, which wasn't in the graphic novel, is the starter, albeit a pretty undercooked and flavourless one. Pretend for a moment you've never read the menu, or in this case, graphic novel, and go into it with a clean slate, with no heightened expectations, almost like you're going into this blind. You don't know what to expect, you don't know what's on your plate. Are you going to savour the flavours that are there? Or complain about what wasn't there? Or let the aftertaste of the starter ruin the entire meal for you? Are you going to stay loyal fans or let this ruin the franchise? Seems to me that many fans are letting one particular scene in this film ruin the whole thing for them, proclaiming that DC has ruined a classic. I'll leave that up for individual interpretation, I suppose. As close as this movie is to the graphic novel, almost scene by scene apart from the really awkward transitions, the novel is not long enough to fill a feature-length movie. I, for one, would have been happy with it being an hour-long special instead of it being padded out like this. I understand why the writers added this extra prologue about Barbara so we get to know her before the tragic events that happen later on, but come on, we know who Batgirl is. There was so much in there we could have done without. To me, Batman and Batgirl have always had a platonic relationship, Batman being a more parental role, or an older sibling, or an uncle. Never a love interest. But let's face it, this was pure carnal. There's no love there, and that to me was refreshing to see. Think about it. How often in mainstream animation do you see two people do it and not have any emotional connection or love in there? This wasn't about Batgirl loving Batman. This was about Batgirl loving the thrill of being Batgirl and wanting to be taken seriously by him and seen as an equal. I feel we really didn't need this thrown in. We were getting to know Barbara, and now it seems the writers thought the only way the audience are going to care about Barbara is if we throw sex in there. Why? This story is about Jim Gordon being driven insane by seeing his daughter in the worst possible situation and being unable to do anything about it. If we were going to pad out the story, make it more about Jim Gordon, not Barbara. It is about Joker proving a point that anyone can go as crazy as he did, and that all it takes is one bad day. This is not the first time Bruce and Barbara have hooked up, of course. Batman Beyond has an even more controversial hookup in that reiteration. But the thing is, we did not need it here. Not in The Killing Joke. Is this really what The Killing Joke is going to be remembered for? More than the actual meat of the story? Are people really this petty? Is that all most reviewers are going to talk about? What this movie did badly? Come on, let's not let this terrible starter ruin the whole 3-course meal. Let's get to the main course. The true reason people wanted this story to be made into a movie. The Joker's backstory. Wash that nasty aftertaste out of your mouth and let's get stuck in. Here are my thoughts on The Killing Joke. Although The Killing Joke is known as the graphic novel that gave the Joker a backstory, it's only seen as one possible explanation. The Joker himself is meant to be a mystery, so giving him a cemented backstory goes against his very nature. And as he says in Mad Love, if you have to explain a joke, then there is no joke. The first sight of a hint of his backstory was revealed in DC issue number 168, where it is revealed that the man behind the red hood was the Joker. This was also where his white skin and green hair was explained. The chemical vapors from the water he swam through to escape caused this, but his insanity was triggered when he finally saw his reflection in the mirror, scaring himself half to death and realizing he could terrify others with this new face. In the same year as the publication of The Killing Joke in 1988, A Death in the Family was also published. Both of these comics marked the point of no return for the Joker. Now any redemption for him was impossible. So why is the Killing Joke so iconic? Because even if the backstory provided in it is not concrete, it shows that the Joker was not always this way. That before he became the Clown Prince of Crime, before he had that one bad day that warped his mind forever, he was exactly the sort of person Batman had dedicated his life to protecting. He was a common man. But did the movie tell the story successfully? The animated film to me struggles to portray the original artistic style of the graphic novel, since Brian Boland's style is far more realistic than anything depicted in a Batman comic before this. Boland's colours are more restrained and sombre in the comic, as it should be to suit the tone of the story, but the animated movie to me just didn't have quite the same restraint. Even in the flashback sequences, which should have been completely sepia in tone apart from key objects, there is far too much colour here for me to accept any of the scenes to be dreamlike. It loses the intensity that the graphic novel had. The red of the blood isn't as shocking or as intense, nor is Barbara's shot wound the first gunshot we see of the movie, nor is it the most shocking, which to me is just ridiculous. But if you ignore that and the terrible transitions between the dream sequences and real life, it more or less stayed true to the dialogue of the novel, with a few lines dropped here and there. To me, this film should have been treated far more like a silent film. The moment that the unnamed failed comedian emerges from the chemical wastewater was the moment that was going to make or break this film for me. If I have one complaint, it was done far too quickly. There needed to be a pause, a moment of silence before the final collapse into maniacal laughter. To me, it needed to feel far more tragic than scary, and the film felt like it just wasn't bold enough to do this. The visuals needed to be restrained more in the colours so that the shocking colours of the Joker has more impact, just as they do in the graphic novel. But what sold it for me was, of course, the phenomenal voice acting. We have been waiting to hear these speeches full of inarguable logic delivered by Mark Hamill, and hearing anyone else do them would just, it wouldn't be wrong per se, but maybe just feel a little, unnatural. The saying goes as well for Kevin Conroy. Having anyone else portray these two in this story would just feel unjust. Both Conroy and Hamill have voiced these characters together for over 25 years, and to many of us born in the 80s, these two are these characters. The actors themselves have a mutual respect and understanding for each other, and although Batman and Joker will never fully understand one another, I feel this graphic novel shows that there is a level of respect there. Like they both know they are both insane, but are two sides of the same coin. One is facing the world head on and wants to fix it, while the other is pushing it into the mud, forcing it to accept that it is broken and that any hopes of it being saved doesn't exist, and that anybody else that goes through the same thing can go just as insane as the Joker has. The thing I love about this story is the fact that the Joker has accepted that it is far too late for any redemption, and that Batman respects that. Batman offers him help, wanting to avoid the inevitable, believing that there is a way out for both of them, but also knowing that there isn't. The joke the comic ends on is one that is both hilarious and truly upsetting. No matter how you look at it, Joker is convinced that either Batman would give up on him halfway through if he accepted help, or that Joker would just give up on himself, turning the light off and accepting the darkness. The two of them laughing together at the end may seem a little strange, but to me it is laughing at how hopeless the situation is and that neither of them can go back to how things were before. The movie may have its problems and the psychological meat may be a little too chewy to swallow, but honestly, I love what this movie did right. It's not spectacular, but it is acceptable. Perhaps the hype was just far too much for it to cope with, and perhaps people who aren't Batman fans would not be able to process it fully. But still, this is a moment in animation history that will not be forgotten, and I just hope it's remembered for the good that it did, and not for that terrible Batgirl starter sequence. That aftertaste is gone now. Overall, this was truly delicious. I'm Mad Munchkin. Stay creative. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video, and before you go, don't forget to click that like button and check out some of my other content too. And hey, if you really like what you saw and want to see more, go ahead and click subscribe. Don't forget you can also show your support by following the official Mad Munchkin Facebook page for convention announcements, as well as links to my 2 online shops where you can purchase some of my artwork. Also keep an eye out on the DeviantArt page for announcements on when I am open for commissioned work. Don't forget you can also show your support by becoming a patron on my Patreon page, where you can win exclusive rewards like badges, stickers, discounts on commissions, and limited edition personally signed prints, as well as giving me ideas for what to cover in future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and see you again soon.